The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to The Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
Is that like Pop Goes the Weasel? One of those.
That was a can pour today, man. Nice one, though. A 16600 can pour. Mixed whites.
Yes, you can.
There's six of us here today for the podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to
There is six of us.
Yeah.
But only...
Still outnumbered.
But... and, you know, not all of us speak words yet.
Most of us can't form sentences.
Right. There's hope for some of us. The rest of us are pretty locked in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Winemakers. I'm John Myers with Brian Casey, Bart Hansen, and Sam Couturi, sitting outside at 1600 with Brenae Royal. Welcome. You are the vineyard manager, ding, 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 at Monte Rosso. What a beautiful spot to work. Wow.
Thank you.
I love looking down at that vineyard. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So is this the third time we've had you on?
This is this is the second time.
Second?
Yeah.
Wasn't there one time like was there a COVID one? I guess.
Well, I think it was right before COVID.
It was in 2019.
Yeah.
December.
It was like December 2019. Yeah. It was like one of our last
everything was like
in
really
person.
Thinking we were going to take off.
Yeah. 2020 was going to be great.
Yeah.
It was going to.
It was to be psychotic.
Good vintage.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
It's Brenae Royal +1.
+1.
Yeah,
Plus
10
one.
weeks.
Second generation
That's cool.
farmer coming.
We're 10 weeks out.
Yeah.
10 weeks.
And the little boy.
Yeah.
How long before you can get him pruning and stuff like
I'm
that?
thinking like 18 months. I'm throwing him outside.
Yeah, I could see leaf pulling really quick.
Oh,
That's
absolutely. Really
I mean,
good activity.
Yeah. And we're establishing like a second garden. I'm going to throw him out there with the guys. So I'm banking on 18 months or so.
Do you have a big garden now?
Yeah, we have maybe 1.5 acres of garden,
Wow,
and we're
nice.
establishing a second acre.
Where's it all go? Personal
Yeah.
of everybody?
So the idea with the second one is just for the team to have an extension of produce that we don't already grow. We're also doing a beehive. And then we're getting chickens at some point. I was supposed to get them last fall, and then I was like, who's going to take care of the chickens over the winter? Because probably not going to be me. So
I was the chickens. We have backyard 7. They were so miserable through the 3 weeks
The
of
rain.
the 3 weeks of
Yeah.
rain, and like I had this one that's got the little like feathery feet, and we had to build a bridge for her to get across the like lake that was in front of, because the chickens are they're so happy now that the sun is out and there's all this grass to eat, and oh man. But yeah, taking care of and it's the winter chickens. It was wet and it smells bad. And I think you made the right decision. I think you made the right call there, Brenae.
Well, and we're like building them like this whole like. I mean, it's not just a coop. It's
It'll
like
be
all the protection from the mountain lions and coyotes.
I was gonna say you have
chickens.
some predators
So
out there,
we're trying to make sure they're secure, whether somebody's present or not.
and then make sure that you put a list together of what you want planted in this other garden. Because I remember working at Benziger, I think we let the employees plant a garden, and we ended up with 27 different types of peppers.
I currently have, we currently have like 15, and then we have an onslaught of just different styles of tomatoes and things like that. We have corn, strawberries.
One zucchini plant.
Yeah, all
Only
the
one.
squash.
Well, and
We have pumpkins.
lots of like different varieties of melon, right? Because
Yeah.
you have somebody
all
on the
the
team like
cantaloupe.
you like drops a different weird vegetable or melon on your desk every day during the summer or something?
Dionisio,
that's
this
what it
is his 42nd year at Monte Rosso, and he has the biggest garden. We call that his garden because he literally like every weekend will tend to it, and then even after work. And yeah, like people show up and they leave with a bag of produce, but I wake up to like watermelons on my porch and watermelons in my office, and I'm like, I don't know who he thinks is eating all these, and I end up just like driving around Sonoma, like dropping them on people's porches, like, yeah, it's me. So like he's so proud of all of his produce.
It's also a little bit of like, I was here before you were up, right? Isn't that?
Yeah,
that's totally.
He's
totally
been
a little flex.
working at Monte Rosso longer than I've been alive.
You know,
so.
when Kenwood converted Yalupa over to organic farming, Chewy said one of the biggest benefits is that they would find random tomato plants out
in the vineyard, and the guys
they
tend them.
Yeah. And they hadn't been killed, of course, because they hadn't been sprayed.
Right.
And it's a little snack for you for the whole year.
You can find the bunnies collecting to them.
Yeah,
we find random stalks of corn. We find tomatoes. We found a couple watermelon plants in
just
our new
like
development.
in the vineyard.
Yeah, like along where we've probably had to band something or trench it. Like
Right.
you can tell we've probably ran that same piece of equipment recently through the garden. And
or someone's eating a piece of watermelon.
Right, spit some seeds out.
Yeah. But the guys tend them, which is the funniest thing. Like
that's awesome.
you're walking like, all right, every weed around it is gone.
right.
The neatest, most well cared for part of this entire block is a volunteer tomato plant. What is going on?
Could sell those for
like
$7,000.
literally
a pound.
right alongside a grapevine, and we're like, and like no one says anything, and I think the worst part is like I don't say anything, and I'm just walking along like, okay,
There's
I'm not
nothing
gonna
you can say. You can't say
take
anything.
this down.
It's not going to change anything anyway.
No, when the guys are cruising through repairing lines,
It's biodiversity, right? I mean, really, we're joking about it, but it really is. It's like, you know, you have happy bees out there who are flying around and pollinating tomato plants and squash blossoms, and it just, it is the sign of a healthy system, right? If random corn can grow in the middle of Monte Rosso, things are going well, right? That's why I look at it.
That's awesome. So, how's it looking out there? How did you guys?
How did you do in
the rain?
we held up probably until the end of this last one when we got 5.5 inches across the 72 hours or so. That's when all of our creeks were running. One was flooded, and it was like, okay, Monte Rosso's at capacity, but I never had standing water, so it just sounded great on the ranch. Smelled really great, and I don't know. I'm thinking this is going to be a pretty bountiful season, just with all the rain we've gotten since October. Yeah. So
there's nothing like the sound of waterfalls. Water.
It sounds really windy. It sounds like it's actually wind, but it's just all the water running,
rushing through all the time.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It sounds great.
But you guys didn't lose any soil. And for those listeners that don't know Monte Rosso, might want to paint a little picture. I mean, you're up on Moon Mountain. This is hillside.
It's a steep side.
Grades, and so you don't lose any of the soil at some point.
We didn't have any erosion issues, and actually we don't experience a ton of erosion issues. Now, I did have an oak tree crush my garage. That tree was dying, and we just missed all the signs of taking it down prior. But no, erosion issues on the ranch are pretty minimal. We don't have any slides or anything like that.
And Monte Rosso is also unique because it is a little bit, so much rock, and it is a little bit of a plateau up there also, right?
It sits in the bench of the Mayacamas mountain range. Yeah, but I mean, within the property, 60% of it is still on some degree of slope.
Right.
I think the steepest we have is maybe 44 degrees in some select areas, but we've taken those out of production, so we've just thrown.
And what's your highest elevation there?
The vineyard goes from 690 feet up to 1,300 feet. So
that's
we're looking
fun
up
to walk
at
every
Cayman.
day.
We're looking up at Cayman. We're next to Rapri. Amapola Creek is our neighbor just below us. Rancho Salinas. So yeah, notable neighbors. But yeah, to your point, Bart, Monte Rosso really does sit on the bench within the mountain range. So you can see us from a lot of vantage points.
Yeah, you can see it from all over the valley.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things about like the Carragher Road part of the world.
Right.
You know, playing golf at Sonoma Country Club, you like just like the best views of Monte Rosso and the whole Moon Mountain District.
And then when you're
like
down
right
on
there.
when you're in the towards Kenwood and Glen Ellen looking, it's like you said that's Monte Rosso, you'd go, oh, it doesn't look very big, and it's because you're only
just
seeing that little
catching a
sliver.
little
You're
sliver.
catching the top.
Yeah.
The reason I asked about erosion is I remember, I think it was Diana Snowden that was talking about being in Burgundy, and remember when it would rain?
Yeah.
Do you guys remember this? And then they said all the vineyard owners would end up at the bottom of the hill with wheelbarrows scooping their soil back in
Lord.
and then going back up to the top. She's like, anytime it rained like that, we just went and collected our soil at the bottom and then went and redistributed it back up at the top.
I mean, I don't think they have
It's such a French solution to that problem,
right? Because I just don't think that they don't think about that. I don't think they are
but also,
as active like we are. Because when I was there, let me just finish my thought. When I was there on my honeymoon, so it was in August many years ago, it was pouring rain in Burgundy, and the dirt was running across the roads from the vineyards, across the roads into the lower vineyards. They don't have the cover crops that we get, and they don't dig ditches, I guess.
I mean, I also think that some of that is changing. I mean, you grow cover crops,
well,
but
this was 20 years ago also, so
it's too cold in the winter. They don't get the winter cover crops that we get here that can help with the erosion control. But, to the point of, Moon Mountain in the storms like this, basically the county requires you, and you have to build erosion control as if you're going to get 5.5 inches in 72 hours after 3 weeks of atmospheric rivers. Like this is what you prepare for, out of every 10 years you have to, activate that. But
there's like levels to it too, depending on your slope. It's really aggressive. Like I will say, because we're always like Vesco level 2 or more extreme, like we have more erosion protection than probably necessary, but they come out and inspect and walk the ranch with us.
There was a recently pulled out vineyard on Carragher Road that they threw down their straw and stuff, and the first couple storms it was fine, and then it was just silt running out, and it was like that the whole time, so they didn't get those guys. But I don't know what amount of silt is allowed and whatnot, but it was significant.
But it's supposed to be zero,
right? That's what I thought.
I mean, creeks are supposed to, the creeks that run off your property are supposed to run clear,
right? That's what I thought. So.
With sediment catches, those are all written in.
Yeah, well,
it's a lot.
This vineyard management company didn't do a very good job.
You're supposed to, like, after every storm, be up, like, re-up and
right. That's what I thought. So, you walk the fields and you check everything, and So anyway.
We've had such beautiful weather lately. What's going on in the field? We were talking earlier, and you said you actually saw a couple bud breaks.
Yeah, my young Cab Franc. I don't know what's going on over there. It is a good site, but I saw some of the more distant buds pushing yesterday. It's like, oh, this is a sign.
This is January.
Is it pruned yet? Is it not pruned yet?
So, energy is pushing through the vine. It's active. We're not going to prune it for a while, but it was, we saw some green, we saw popcorning, and I just kind of walked around like, what is happening? And if you recall, last year I did have bud break in Zinfandel across a couple of different areas on the property on January 24th.
I was there that day. And I saw the look on her face.
I was literally like, I went up there. Yeah.
Horror, shock,
I only went to the top
sadness.
of the ranch to like start troubleshooting our wells, because we were in like the third week of 80-degree heat in January. And so I figured we'd start fleshing our lines, and I saw this like very crisp, like very bright green, and I was like, please be a weed, and it wasn't a weed. And I just had the tour group show up, and I definitely was pretty spacey during that tour, because that was the first of 3 times that I had to scrap my plans last year. So luckily we're not in that same predicament this year, but to see the signs of it, vines are definitely bleeding right now. So I like that we're going into a cool down, but it'll probably be another early season for us. And I think, again, this weather's great. We've had a lot of rainfall. We had a lot of post-harvest fertility that was really awesome. And the vineyard was actually able to be dormant for 5 months, which we have not been dormant that long in a very long time. But we finished harvest in 36 days. So that vineyard had time to sleep, and Monte Rosso is a very vigorous site. So an early February bud break won't scare me as much as it has in the past. This vineyard's set up to be really successful this year.
What was the last year, to the two of your memories, that we had a good dormant season?
Maybe 2021, and I will only say it was good because we finished early, but it was actually pretty rough because we just didn't receive any rain.
Right.
And it was a really hot winter.
Right.
So I guess as far as timing between harvest and pruning,
19 it got pretty cold. I mean, that's what I think of is it's like getting down cold enough, because there were some years that I don't even know if the soil started to cool down. Right?
2011?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, you got to go back
2010
now.
was cold.
Yeah.
But I mean, like a true dormant,
15 into 16 and 16 into 17 were heavy rainfall years, where you got 66, 63 inches respectively at Monte Rosso. So that set up really good vintages, but both of those years you're coming off of extreme drought. Right. So you're just kind of offsetting some of it, but you're not really refilling those soil profiles.
What is your rainfall total for this
right now?
season?
We're at 21 inches from October. So pretty solid. Average for us is 34. So I'm liking where we're at for sure. And like I said, I've not seen 5 months of dormancy for a very long time. So with that, all of the composting we were doing, we went through pre-pruned in December, and now my team is flying through. We're at about 50% completion with pruning now, so we're going to kind of switch since that's all of our old stuff. We'll switch into weed control since weeds are pretty small at this point, wire repair, things like that. And then after February 15th, I'll jump back into pruning based on what this weather's doing.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? Like, when you have, when you're Enterprise Vineyards and you have all these different properties all over, you have sort of like a pruning plan that has to do with moving people and logistics. When you have 300 acres and there's all these different varieties and different vine ages and elevations and soils and aspects, how do you sort of what is your pruning priorities? What do you want to, it sounds like the old vines you want to get done first?
Yeah.
Or what's your kind of how do you kind of break that down a little bit? It sounds like a really fun and also daunting problem.
I'm staggering it based on eutypa pressure and just disease pressure with the weather. So that was a big push for me not to do our standard December pruning. We typically get through about 100 acres in December, and that's all the old stuff because it's already diseased. We probably don't have to spend the extra labor putting down too much, protective material. But if you time it right, you can avoid putting material down altogether if you get out of those different disease points. And so based on varietal susceptibility, age of vine, that's how I'll stagger the pruning. So because we have in the neighborhood of about 55 acres of stuff over 100 years old, we'll prune that. I like to delay in those because, also with just yields and stuff, I'm not trying to stress those vines out, and I want those to sleep the longest or as long as they can. So we pre-pruned in there, but then as we get into stuff that's between now 25 and 50 years old, most of that stuff is now Cabernet Sauvignon, which is highly susceptible to eutypa. So we're still trying to delay on that stuff. And then anything under 25 years old, we're trying to push to prune after February 15th. I think with the pre-pruning this year, my team has flown through it. They're moving too quickly. Good problems to have. But they're flying and they're doing really well. So that's why we're gonna just shift and then do wire repair, those kind of things, and then shift back. We're also landscaping at this point because the weather's so nice. People want to tour.
There's big events coming there this year.
A lot of events.
There's the Moon Mountain District thing, and then what sounds like going to be a bigger thing is your baby shower.
Yeah, baby shower has gotten way out of control. The Moon Mountain District event we're looking forward to. We've got Monte Rosso Day immediately after that. So, yeah.
What's Monte Rosso Day?
Monte Rosso Day is when we bring out our top consumers from our membership, and they get to spend a day drinking old library wines, hanging out on the vineyard, hearing stories. We're actually taking them through a master class similar to what we're doing for the Moon Mountain District event, but just really trying to incentivize our membership to stay with us. Cool. And then to just enjoy, stuff that they don't get access to all the time.
So you'd be a member of Louis Martini.
Martini, yeah.
And is this people that are purchasing for restaurants, hotels, and stores, or is this personal collectors?
These are personal collectors from our membership.
Do you want to send any of them down here if they want a little break in between?
Hey, Brenae, so can you speak a little bit? You're converting to organic.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Can you speak a little bit to the challenges you've already come up with, challenges that are in the back of your mind, and what it was like having those discussions with the folks at Gallo?
I'm going to start backwards.
Okay.
That's
probably the way it should be.
That's how I had to get here. So we'd always entertained it, obviously being so centrally located in Moon Mountain District, where it's 97% probably certified organic. There's probably, I think we're one of 3 producers that aren't certified at this point. That had always been kind of a talking piece of, you are the Monte Rosso vineyard. Why aren't you, pushing forward with going organic like most of the AVA? But it wasn't something. People
like Phil Couturi and
those
guys saying that to
Phil's always been very pleasant, but Phil is not shy about really letting you know what he's putting down, and I've always picked it up.
As if you had any other choice.
Yeah.
At least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. So it's always been a conversation piece, but I guess as a company, like it has to check more than just a few boxes of being good for X, Y, and Z. So when we brought it back up in 2020, it was like, okay, we really have to look at this because now I'm selling oodles of fruit. I'm selling about 40% of the production that comes off of Monte Rosso, and a lot of these new producers only want to source from organically certified or softly farmed vineyards. Being certified sustainable just wasn't enough, and certainly as we saw what 2 years ago was kind of this transition of consumers really paying attention to where things were being sourced from, how things were being farmed. We wanted to be a part of that. Yeah. So we went through an 8-week investigative process. I visited with Phil on a number of properties. We went to a couple of other vineyard management companies higher up near Eureka, and was kind of looking at what some of their challenges were. And the consensus for us was that it was going to be weed control, and then our tillage program, and then irrigation, and then this, what I think is a little bit dated, of this concern of yields being shot. Everyone kept saying we were going to lose, 30 to 50% of our crop in year 3. And
wait, why would that be?
And there's the frankly wrong, a fallacy that
it's like
that
the East Coast bias.
Organic farming results in lower yields.
Yeah, it results in like
you
one
have to
time to the acre.
Because you're gonna and then you're gonna lose more to pest and mildew and mold.
Yeah.
And, the reason that organic vineyards, that Enterprise Vineyards farms, are low yielding is because they cut all the fruit off.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So there was
up the average.
Like obviously your fruit is your money. So when you hear something as dramatic as that, especially from people who have been farming for 20, 30 years, that's a huge red flag for anyone trying to be successful financially. farming a vineyard. But for us, Monte Rosso always has lower yields, especially, with 25% of the ranch being over 100 years old.
100-year-old vines.
And we've never operated trying to be a cash cow in that way. Like, it's quality over quantity. So it was a lot of investigative pieces to like overthrow this outdated idea that we were going to lose a lot. And after we worked through all the financials, it wasn't a huge shift because of all the operational challenges that Monte Rosso is already against. Like, since I've been farming it, our fungicide plan has been at least 60% organic. It's now 100. We moved away from Roundup in 2019. We moved away from all herbicides in 2021. So those weren't huge shifts for us. And I'd be lying if I said the vineyard isn't still seeing the benefits of years and years of Roundup. But with the old vines, we're not able to get herbicides really in there because of how low some of the positions get, how early those vines pop. So a lot of the operational challenges kept us to a lot of organic practices anyway. So it wasn't a huge shift to pull the trigger. And then I treated vintage 2022 as kind of year zero. Let's see if it works, because no one actually told me no that we weren't going to go organic.
I love this.
So
this is how I operate a lot of times.
No one told me no, and no one told me yes. Right. So I just text a couple of powers that be and said, hey, I'm going to run this way. I'm going to prove that it works, because if I can prove year 1 works, then year 2 and 3 will be easier. And they said, just don't let anything go haywire, pull the trigger when you need to. So the only thing that I did...
Don't fuck up. You got this. Don't fuck it up.
That's pretty much it.
You can do it. Don't fuck it up.
And last year we did 100% organic on fungicides and 0 herbicides, and I still kept the fertility at 50%. Due to unforeseen cost. And then this year we're transitioning all of the fertility over too. So my start date is some point midsummer last year. But we'll be getting it. And I think the concerns that I see are just young development vines, getting those established, and keeping the weed pressure low in there. We utilize the Kimco. We do a couple of mechanized like hand implements and things like that. But I'd say that would be my concern. And then the biggest learning that we had last year is that I need a lot more money in weed control. But yields were fine.
It really is all about weed control, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weed control, making sure, your timing is right. I will say something that I'd already had in practice for some of the farming passes was that now everything should probably be done in 2 and 3 like shifts. Like, you're probably not going to go and have a dramatic one touch and be done. Right. Like, shoot thinning is probably going to take part over 2 different phases. Leaf removal is now maybe going from 2 to 3 different phases. So I'm able to space things out. And again, a luxury of Monte Rosso is that everything is done by hand with the same people year after year. So the experience level of my team is perfect for that, and they stay at Monte Rosso. So when we have to split off pods of people to farm the inner plants separately versus the old vines, we can do that. But yeah, I would say one of my concerns is those inner plants and then young vines, getting those established, getting them sustainable.
And if weed control was tough last year with no rain,
this year is going to be a weed control year for sure. We're pulling the trigger pretty early on weed control. We'll be transitioning to that next week, but yeah, you stay constant on weed control. We're going to introduce sheep. I'm hopeful we'll do that pretty soon, but the weed control is the costly. And then, of course, too, now that you've moved away from herbicides, we have about 70 acres of terrace. So people are out there with weed eaters. Yeah. That is incredibly labor intensive.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you have a crew up there, some of them that have worked there decades. Have you gotten a little bit of pushback from some of the veterans about converting to organic?
No, I got buy-in from my team a couple years ago on new ideas. I think I talked about this on the first interview with you guys, but it took me like a year and a half, maybe 2 years to really gain their trust and respect as far as why we may be changing things or here's why we're doing something. And I take them to tastings. I bring all the accolades back to them. So when I have a new idea, they're more vested in like learning why, and they know that they have total opportunity to push back, and it's not going to be frowned upon. So my guys like to have that vested ownership, and I can usually explain why we're doing something and have a pretty good reception to it. So
I'm just thinking you're talking about doing more passes, you're talking about a lot of weed control. So I mean, are they like, oh, this is the least favorite part of our job?
No, I would say, because I mean, I don't know how much time you've spent with like a vineyard crew, but those guys want to be there. And I will say that's why we have guys that have decades of dedication to the ranch. Because for all those labor intensive parts, we're barbecuing. Those guys have their gardens. They literally hand me a list and say, I need all these things. And even though some of them are a little pricey, I'm like, I'm going to get it. And, you know, they're bringing their families out to the ranch. Yeah, I think we all roll our eyes at some of the tougher parts of the job, but those guys are so invested in Monte Rosso. I'm actually concerned about when I'm gonna have to force them to retire. So like they're just not keen on doing that.
Is new labor a problem for you?
Luckily no, but we're also paying on the higher end of general labor for associates to come and join us.
You keep a team year round though.
Yes. Right. And again, I think I'm definitely not a hard ass. They do know like not to test me. They all know I take
I'm
boxing.
not a hard ass, but I have been one.
Well,
unless I have to be.
Well, like during the pandemic, my boxing coach actually set up punching bags in the arbor area. So like the guys would roll by and I'm down there like punching and they'd stop.
Like, make sure and schedule little drive-bys.
Yeah.
Definitely not going to complain about doing some weed eating to her.
So yeah, it was kind of a joke. Like some of the new guys that just like weren't part of the team for very long would think that they could get one over on me. And a lot of people don't understand. I can understand Spanish. So like they'd be over there talking mess. And like I just see all the older guys like shaking their head like, oh no, we're going to have to talk to him. And then the new guy at some point in the year would come up to me and be like, oh, so like every time you're leaving, you're going to your boxing class? You box? And so it's like this running joke of like,
crack your knuckles and say, what's it to you, man?
Yeah. As I'm handing him a weed eater, like.
No complaints, Brian. They've had no complaints.
Yeah. I don't know. So yeah, I'm not a hard ass. I definitely don't micromanage. And I think giving them ownership pretty early on in my leadership, like, has made them understand that I do not operate in a sense that I'm up here and you guys are there. And I try and do everything that they do. I'm definitely the weakest link. And now that I'm pregnant, like they don't really let me do too much. So there's just a very great level of respect between everybody. And they do feel the same amount of ownership that I feel. So I like that we were able to cultivate that at the ranch. And we don't get a whole lot of pushback when we have harder tasks coming our way.
No, and I just remember the last time I think you were on, we were talking about you wanting to do something different in the vineyard, and it was one of the veteran guys that was like, wait a minute, like, wait, this, because people get like that with their jobs. So we've done this a certain way for a certain amount of time, and then like, wait, why are we changing this? And do they understand that it translates, what the results are going to be? Is that this is going to be better fruit, hopefully. And then ultimately, do you guys get more money for if it's certified organic, then you're going to get even more per ton for the fruit?
That typically, yes. Something that I've had to really watch is like, we're going to flood the market now, having as much fruit as I have available. We'll be able to push price, but I am concerned with just how that's going to compete with neighbors and things like that. We definitely sell the most fruit out of that AVA, save for like maybe Cundy, but I don't think Cundy's 100% in.
They're not 100% in, and I don't know how much of it they sell.
Yeah,
sell
40% for me is about 250 tons.
Yeah,
so.
I
I don't think anybody.
They probably
No
sell
one
all the
touches
stuff
that.
down
No
on
one
the
comes
flats and
anywhere-
whatnot.
Yeah.
anywhere
no
close
way.
to that.
No one, and yeah, my neighbors like Cayman sells a little bit of fruit.
I don't think he really does anymore though. He did for a
Okay.
while, but
I mean-
now they've gotten to the point where with I think they're taking it off.
Los Chamazal, I mean,
Los Chamazal, okay, that would be.
They definitely do, but not.
That's 60 acres, right?
Yeah,
And that's almost all sold.
it is all sold, and it's farmed softly, but he has no intention of organic, and quite frankly, who he's selling it to, they're not paying him anything for it. So,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
not really.
They really.
I
Aren't.
think that would be another concern of mine, though. I'm now putting 250 acres of organically certified.
Well,
fruit
no, that's what I mean.
in
Yeah,
the
because,
No, I think that
because are there buyers for the 250?
Oh, yeah.
For those, I mean,
because you're not just getting like high quality fruit. You're paying for the name as well. Monte Rosso has a legacy that stands on its own, but you are paying for the name, and we talked about this prior to today's interview, but that's kind of the whole thing, even with the grape sales and how I manage that. Like,
right.
we are expecting that name to propel you forward, to get you better scores, to get people more attracted to your brand and what you're doing. It gives you exposure to the rest of your portfolio. That's what we are saying you're paying for. So I think with that in mind, and knowing that we're flooding, a pretty small market at this point, it's like, oh, okay, I don't want to raise price so much that I, now push people out because it just isn't sustainable. Right. So as I'm kind of learning in this winery relations piece, it's like there's a limit to, aligning myself with what my external producers are doing. I have to take into account their brand story, their demographic. This was a conversation I was having with Tegan Pasalacqua. He just released his 2020 Zin. His 2021 just scored really well. But you guys know Tegan. He's a tough cookie. Mm-hmm. I'm a tough cookie. I love the relationship that we have now, but
well qualified.
Tegan knows.
A well qualified statement.
But Tegan's a tough cookie, and when he brought out his 2020 and 2021 for trademark authority or approval, because I have trademark authority, we talked about it. He goes, you're charging X for this, but this will now be our most expensive wine, and our demographics used to paying between $40 and $60. We're now pricing this at $65, and you're saying in your agreement you want to see higher prices by 2025. So like, how does that work alongside everybody? And it was really then that the wheels got spinning, like, okay, I'm pushing and doing this, but am I going to force somebody like Tegan and that iconic team out because of my goals over here? So how do I balance that of getting the value that I know this fruit is worth, but also meeting my increased farming costs year after year, but also aligning with these brands that I want to have continuity with that do stay in a pretty relative price point.
I mean, what you've done up there and what Gallo's done, I mean, this is not the Gallo that we grew up with, right? Like, it's so awesome to see the evolution, and I know the vineyard's always been quality focused and stuff, but it was also always in house for the most part, it's awesome. It's awesome to see how Gallo is evolving and how you guys are doing with it. It's pretty cool.
Thank you.
I know that was kind of a backhanded compliment.
I get it.
Okay.
I mean, okay.
Because it's family. Gallo is a family business.
I understand that, Brian.
Come from farmers.
Yeah, but I understand that. But there was a time where when they had the Gallo Sonoma program, that the talk around the county was if Gallo Sonoma takes off the way they want it to, there won't be any grapes for anyone else but Gallo. I mean, it was like this behemoth, and they were so powerful, and it was nobody really thought of it as being, they talked quality, but no one ever saw it. There were hits and misses along the way, and now it seems like it's really taking off, and I'm trying to pay a compliment.
Yeah, I will say, I mean,
and not wake up with a horse head in his bed tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I really am.
Bart, this
doesn't come out for 10 days. You have 10 days to make it to Mexico, Bart.
Bart, there's no question.
Costa Rica,
that
somewhere with no extradition.
The image has changed in the last 30 years. That's it.
I will say even in the last 5. I mean, I'm going on 10 years with the company. I feel very old saying that, but we held Monte Rosso close to the chest up until 2019. Like, we were utilizing it everywhere, and I would say we were underselling ourselves because we were putting, these great properties into these value wines that you could pick up in Safeway. So I will say I completely understand Bart's point, because our focus is no longer trying to be really for everybody, at least in the category that Monte Rosso sits in. We'll always own, the bottom 2 shelves to make sure those entry-level wine drinkers have something accessible to them. Hey, man.
Apothecary, that's why we're all sitting here.
Yeah. Apothecary is my heart.
Sitting here.
But, when we have properties like Monte Rosso or Stagecoach or Rancho Real down on the coast, now we can really extrapolate what those vineyards can produce and highlight them as standalones, as vineyard designates, and sell them to these producers who are going to further the cause, but also bring awareness and attention to vineyards that are iconic like that. So the ideas have changed and the business models have changed. And I think that's why I have so much flexibility to be like, yeah, we need to pull the trigger on this. Let's move forward. And there's so much more reception than there was even in 2014 when we did have certified organic blocks.
What year did Gallo buy Martini and Monte Rosso?
2002.
2002.
So they bought Martini, Monte Rosso, and then a vineyard called Sage Canyon out in Charles Valley.
That was all part of the Martini.
Yep.
Wait, do they still own that vineyard?
Yeah.
So Nyers, I think, sources out of that Sage Canyon.
I'm unsure who sources from there, but
I
it
had no
was
idea that they had that.
Well, can we actually take a moment to shout out all the people that you are selling grapes to from there now? Because I believe that part of the reason you should sell them grapes for a premium price is that, when you talk about it and post it on your Instagram, that's part of what they're buying. So, Tegan, this one's for you. This is part of your, what I'm guessing. Well, I won't say the number, but I think I know the number based on that bottle price. Worthy price per ton.
Price per
Sandlands,
ton.
obviously.
No.
It's Turley.
Yeah, this is for Turley.
This is for Turley. Okay.
You want to know the price per ton?
No.
Oh, I was like,
No.
Unless you want to say
No,
that. You don't have to say that. No, because there might be somebody who's getting a different price per ton. No, don't mess up that. No, just the producers, because it's an impressive roster that's certainly evolved in the last few years.
Somebody that
there's the stalwarts, but there's some cool new names on that list.
Yeah, I need to announce them
shout some people out
soon. So Scribe is now making a Cabernet Sauvignon. They actually just released their 2020 back in November.
What can't they do at Scribe?
We have Brown Estate. Bedrock's been a long time producer since 2008. Bialy since 1995. I'm really, really excited about Hill of Tara. We'll see their wine in 2024.
Who's that?
I don't know. It's
Danny.
It's some like Irish thing. I don't know.
I'm super excited with his wine. Geez, I can't even list them off. We're gonna see Artie Johnson, Wine XYZ. I'm super pumped for his. So he's doing a Zin and a Petite Syrah that we'll see in a couple years. Vengi we'll actually see pretty soon. 26 bricks. Lambert Bridge has been somebody I love Jennifer Higgins. Drew Damsky at Paul Mary makes probably one of the most beautiful Semillons.
I had that the other day, actually. It was great.
Yeah, Drew does a great job. Gagnon and Kennedy, Mark Gagnon and Michael Kennedy, their project. They work with 8 iconic and historical vineyards between Sonoma and Napa. Who else? There's a lot. We have Lyoko coming on.
Oh, cool.
So that'll be really exciting. Let's see. Charlie LaRue Wines. So Katie Wilson and Dave Remenses. We should actually see Reeves First Sangiovese coming this year. It's like 40 producers. So I apologize to anybody I'm missing because there's so many now.
We'll throw a list of tags on the Instagram post or something.
It's a lot of people. So that started picking up in 2020. I had 17 buyers. 2021 I had 34. Last year I had 40. I'll stay hovering around 40. Oh, one that I can't miss. Repris is back. So
cool.
Surprise variety there.
Into Pangloss or into Repris?
I believe this will be going to Pangloss.
Okay.
So
Okay, I was going to say, why would Repris buy fruit from I mean, because
everybody needs more grapes, man.
And Repris was making a Zin and a Cab up until 2015, I want to say. And then now we've brought them back for Sangiovese. Cool.
Limerick Lane.
Oh my gosh, how could I miss them? They made a beautiful Zinfandel.
What's his name? The surfer guy that just got one of the best Zins. Dry Creek producer, but he's
Kokomo. Yeah, Kokomo. I'm actually visiting with them on Monday. The surfer guy.
Yeah, he's a surfer.
I'm meeting with Eric and Randy on Monday. It's the bulk of our producers are in Zinfandel, actually. We have Nottingham Cellars, which is a group out of Livermore. They're now based in Napa. They made a beautiful Zinfandel. We have Brian Wise back with Petite Syrah, so we'll see that probably next year. So yeah, lots of people.
Brenae, because I remember there was a point when there wasn't a lot of people sourcing out of that vineyard, and then you slowly started bringing back. Who gets to decide, and what do you decide based on?
It's all me.
I'm not kidding. Really?
That's my maniacal, like, Ursula laugh.
So I believe
nailed it.
And I'm
very proud of
that.
So you have 100% control over who is
whatever you say,
buying that fruit.
It's like 95%. I do have superiors,
wow.
But when I'm vetting a new producer, Monte Rosso is a very unique wine. I actually should have brought some. I apologize. But
I guess you're not thinking about wine this much these days.
Yeah, it smells great. But I mean, it's such a unique wine. I'm always kind of looking at somebody's portfolio. So I'm looking at their legacy, what they're doing. Are they on the up and coming? Are they part of the old guard? What is their portfolio's median price point, things like that. But also, what's their lineup? I'll say this one sticks out to me for Lioco. This will be their first Cabernet Sauvignon, along with one that is going to be Sonoma County, I believe. But they're, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And so it's like, okay, we really leaned heavily on the group that is Lioco. They're iconic, they're in really great spaces. So where can this wine potentially go? If we're in agreement there, I've tasted through their portfolio, I like what could happen, and we talk through what they're trying to make their wine be. That'll give me an idea of what blocks we have available and where we might be able to best farm to get to that. So I won't show everybody everything, just kind of getting an idea of like, okay, what can we manipulate in the field to get them as close to this wine style as possible, have them out to the ranch, and then we'll determine. Anybody for the first time working at Monte Rosso gets a 1-year agreement, and that's mostly to make sure you and I get along.
Make sure the check clears.
Just because we know
on-time payment.
I know my team's gonna farm good grapes, and I expect that you're gonna make good wine, but it's agriculture, so if things go wrong, and we have to have tough conversations, I don't want to stop that. I don't want that to stop us from having a beer outside of work. Like, I don't want a negative conversation to be taken outside or affect our personal relationship if we have one. Because things do go wrong. And I think these last 2 vintages kind of prove that. When I have to send a text at the start of harvest saying, hey, I'm probably going to meet 65% of your contract, that's a tough conversation to have. So, and I'll show, as many cards as I can. And even before the ink is dry, like, we're going through my farm plan. So like when we settle on however many blocks or varieties that you want. I'm walking through my farm plan and saying this is more or less what we do year to year, and then I'm giving people a 2 weeks heads up before every major farming class. So I'll write an email and say this is more or less what we're doing. If you guys want to try something else, I'm all ears. Come on out to the ranch before my team jumps in. So it's a very collaborative process, but you do have to have some notoriety of your own. Of you're not just going to be hanging out. Like, I want to see that you're out in market, you're pushing it, because effectively the benefit for me too is you having that trademark and selling it for me, scoring really well, because that just builds the equity back for us. With that being said, I do want to build continuity as well. So again, I don't want to outprice you, and I want to make sure that what wine you're creating is complementary to what's happening with the rest of our producers, and certainly what's going on at Louis and Martini. And I want it to be reflective of what the vineyard was going through for that vintage. So stylistic points aren't really something that I'm going to pay hard attention to, because we now have a range. I'd say Gallo's on the far right, where we do utilize a lot of oak. We are higher alcohol. But then you have somebody maybe on the far left, like the Yoko, a super, super lean Cabernet Sauvignon. That's just a very different style. I want to see that, but I don't want to see something that you couldn't tell didn't come off of Monte Rosso. Right. So I'm looking at a couple different things. And then I have 4 qualitative check marks each year. So to get final approval on the trademark, even if I gave you an agreement, is me tasting before you go to bottle. And then I do approve all labels as well.
What's the biggest failure in your expectations that you've seen somebody produce? Simply a bad wine, or I mean, where you had to have a really tough conversation with them about what they were producing?
It's typically around Zin. Our Zins just don't play by anybody's rules. So like, you can pick in field at 24 bricks. You'll get it in tank at 26, 28 bricks. You start picking higher than that, you start to see a higher degree of soak up. So you can almost expect that fermentation is going to stick. I hope Tegan doesn't kill me, but his stayed stuck for about 20 months and it turned into a beautiful wine. But that's one of the longest, times stuck in fermentation that we've ever seen. And I know he was particularly nervous about it, but
never saw my Roussan.
Well, and I wasn't nervous because I typically
26 bricks though, probably.
He picked, I think he actually picked first in 2020. So to see it stick for as long as it did, it wasn't making me too nervous because I just know the ability of his team. But that can go wrong if you're not really paying attention to the wine. And he, like I said, created a beautiful wine. That's not the case for some of the others and producers from that year. Yeah. And it totally got away. And you started seeing, 11, 12, 13 grams of residual sugar. Now you've got a port on your hands. So if I see like a loss of control like that, then, we probably can't rectify it. So I will reject trademark. I had to reject trademark. And that's, you're effectively calling somebody's kid ugly. So like when you take away that right to use the name, I wish I had a better metaphor. But
I very much doubt you'll come to regret that one. It's possible.
Right. Come on, King.
Let's go, King. Stakes are high, buddy.
Yeah, stakes are super high. If you come out,
high bar here.
If you're not a 10, it was your dad.
Let's be honest. Everything bad is his dad anyway.
In all cases.
But that's a tough conversation. And actually, when I was having that conversation, I'll bring, our wine or whatever they request. But that's just tough because art, I think wine is art, and people are putting a lot of time and energy into it. So I'll hear out everything that we might be able to rectify or mitigate or stuff like that. But once I reject, you also don't get to buy from us again. So it's like no second chances. And we'll help you. We'll extend an olive branch. You still have to sell that wine. Like a lot of people have been able to like rectify the wines. For us, we're out, because I do believe one bad apple kind of spoils it for everybody. And because there is a price difference between trademark and non-trademark fruit, for the people who have the trademark, I would think it would be a huge disservice to, you know, have a bad wine out there. So we will extend the olive branch of like, how can we help you sell this and be successful, because you still have wine that's in tank, or you're going to do something with it.
Because wait a minute, then if you then deny them trademark, but they have basically paid for that, then are they getting some sort of payback on the cost of the grapes?
No.
So they screwed it up, so it's on them. Basically.
Once it leaves the vineyard, it is no longer under our insurance, anything.
Okay.
And again, this goes back to that confidence of, I gave you this trademark agreement at the start of the contracting process because I had full confidence you were going to get this wine to market. So
tough being the boss. If someone were to, if someone were to bring a gift,
the crown.
If someone were to bring a gift to you, what sort of gift would it be?
No,
what are a few of your favorite things, Brenae?
I don't know. I will say, like, it's interesting because obviously there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen. I have the authority over Monte Rosso, but I still have to present to the powers that be. So I do sit down with our executive leadership team with all of the wines, and I have to have full notes of why we're selling to somebody. And even when the powers that be push back, I can go to bat and say this makes sense. And more times than not, I've just gotten, all right, if this goes wrong, like, you have to be willing to do the hard part too. Yeah, pretty much. On some of the ones that, you know, are pretty contentious, I'll go to bat for them. And I have to have full notes. I have to have all the wine chemistries and things like that, and talk to it. So even I'm about to do my big executive tasting in March, but when I'm going and picking up these unfinished wines, I'm having the trust of those winemakers to give me an unfinished wine with my winemaking team in the building to explain, you know, this is in the middle of malolactic, or this is in the middle of something, to say this isn't a bad wine, it's incomplete, but it is still showing the trend of the vintage. We like where it's headed. Okay, Brenae, you get the other 3 qualitative assessments to say, give them the thumbs up.
I mean, again, I'm going to go back to my statement of, like, what a great thing and what a commitment to quality Gallo's doing there. And because think about it, they're doing this for all these little 1 and 2 ton lots, 5 ton lots. And like, it's a lot of work, and they're doing it because they want to do well by the vineyard. And again, it's all quality.
I would say awesome. Too, I think Monte Rosso is a vehicle. Like, you think of Sonoma County, and there's probably 10 to 15 vineyards that I would say are Grand Cru, and Monte Rosso is definitely near the top, if not at the top of that list. I think we have a little bit of an identity crisis being in Sonoma County. People have like this, I'm blanking on what I'm trying to say, but we always kind of look at ourselves as like the ugly stepchild to Napa. And we're not, but how do we really present to people coming in from out of town to visit us? 19 AVAs, like, you can't do even like really 2 in a day. Like, how are you really bringing people to the area? And so I will say, when I'm kind of mapping out who I'm selling to and where they're based and all these different things, it's like, okay, if I can pull somebody up to Cloverdale because they've got a Monte Rosso and I've got this heat seeker of a consumer looking for all things Monte Rosso, like, how do we drive them over there? And then, oh, by the way, we've got all these other wines from these other producers or vineyards or what have you. And same thing with even pushing over into Napa, like, how do we get those people over here? So how do we like utilize this vineyard to really propel the wineries that are here, the wineries that do lean heavy on Sonoma County, and elevate it? Because, you know, we aren't the ugly stepchild. We're just the one that left home at 18. So,
are there any other
didn't go to finishing school?
We had to work retail all through college, right. But you know, we're hard workers.
Are there any other vineyards out there that are as strict about quality as you are?
And I would say yes. I think I just tend to maybe have a little bit more of a spotlight given all my other attributes. And the fact that I'm on social media and things like that. I think more and more people are being more protective around a vineyard designation and having more stipulations, and really trying to hone in on that value, because we're seeing more and more of it.
So this is kind of a brand new thing. Sam, when did this start?
Oh, I mean, I think that if you're farming a brand name vineyard, this is part of the process. I mean, it's fairly standard in the contract. If you're going to use a vineyard designate on fruit that you're purchasing, that the seller, the winery, I mean, not the winery, the vineyard, or whoever owns the vineyard or farms the vineyard in this case, is going to have some say in, whether or not that wine gets to actually have the vineyard name on it. Because 100%, like Brenae said, if you're selling fruit from a top name, top price vineyard and somebody's out there fucking it up, you can't sell fruit to that person anymore, and you don't want them to put that name on that label. So I mean, it's not totally typical, because not every vineyard has that cachet.
Right.
But Oakville Ranch, Tokelon, any of the Beckstoffer stuff. Rossi's a little bit different. It's not, it's, first of all, it's not nearly the volume. But anybody, anytime that it's a brand name vineyard, there's some say. But I would it was what I was thinking as you were talking about this. Probably when you were here last, you weren't as involved in the tasting part of it and the like getting to taste the wines and sort of connect what's happening and what you see in the vineyard to what actually comes out in the glass.
I was just taking it over. That was my first year of really taking it back. So we introduced 6 people back in 2019, and then it exploded in 2020. Right. And now, because I'm literally with executive leadership going to bat for all these producers and now really promoting Monte Rosso in that way. Like, I have my hand in the middle of the pot, where even for our internal programs, like, people are coming to me like, does this make sense? Can you do more with it over here? Like, who's doing what? So it's expanded my ability to just have control over Monte Rosso.
Well, and it's got to be the coolest thing to
it's a lot of fun.
Taste all these different expressions and definitions of ripeness and what all these different winemakers are wanting to do. But I'm sure I would love to do this. I would love to spend a day tasting these wines with you,
Totally,
to see the through line of what Monte Rosso is. So even if it's Scribe making a Cabernet and with their stylistic leanings towards what the martini expression of it is, and everything that's in between there, would be a fascinating taste. Are we gonna get to do that tasting in June?
Yeah, you
is that happening?
Like an idea in my mind. So I started it last year, but we do a producer day where all of the producers come with their wines, and we all get to taste and kind of talk through. That's my opportunity to present the information of Monte Rosso to make sure everybody's telling the same story, at least of the vineyard. And then I want to hear how they're selling the wine, because again, it's a club, not a competition. So I set up the contracts so that you can only make 250, 300 cases of wine. And I know you're going to run out. And when you do, who are 2 or 3 or 4 other counterparts that you want to point your buyer to go and taste at? Because Gallo will forever make the most diverse lineup of Monte Rosso wines and will always make the most. Right. So when you guys run out, I hope you're bringing people back home. Right. So how are these wines playing together? How are they tasting? It was really fun seeing all 5 of our producers out of this one cab block, tasting together, and they all had 5 very different wines. Limerick Lane, Brown Estate, and Turley pull from the same blocks, and those are 3 very different wines. I've had a chance to taste back to back, and it's like, whoa. But I'm thinking with the producer day, it's going to be at Monte Rosso this year. I need to make that like a ticketed event, because something I learned with the first
I'd buy that ticket.
The first year that we did it,
actually.
The first time we did it, I didn't realize a lot of those winemakers hadn't even met each other. And I was like, how don't you know about this person?
Spend all their time in their own cellar.
Yeah. And so it was really cool to see, all these people coming together off of a vineyard, and they're all making these very different, point of view wines.
So the difference. I want to, when you taste like the 3 Zinfandels or those 5 Cabernets, what are the similarities? What are you like when you taste those wines? What's the thread that's like, oh yeah, that's Monte Rosso? That so, because I mean, my assumption would be when you're doing these trademark approvals that's part of it too, right? You have to make a wine that is still true to
the
vineyard, right?
Yeah, true to the place. I'll say with those 3 producers, 2 of the old vine blocks are block E13 is down at 800 feet elevation, and block E25 is up between 1,000 and 1,100 feet elevation, and is on a true southwest facing slope, whereas E13 is relatively flat, but then leans north or like heads north. And is cooler. So like from those cooler spots, I know we're going to see a lot of floral, like aromatics. It's going to be a lot softer on the profile. It's still going to have like a really nice vibrancy with acidity. It's going to be a little bit more earthy. And then when married with E25, you're now going to see a lot more spice. You're going to get a lot more of that classic terroir from the iron-rich soils. And you're also going to get a lot more density, like with the tannins and just a heavier, bigger, bolder style. And again, they pulled from different sections of those 2 same blocks. And for me, I was looking for, I guess, different ratios of what each of those blocks would do. Those producers are picking within 2 or 3 days of each other, so we're not seeing dramatic bricks differences, but those different aspects of each of those blocks that they're pulling from gives you enough differentiation where you don't have the 3 looking identical. Right. And even like the conversation I was having with Chris Pittenger of Limerick Lane, like he didn't want this big jam bomb coming into your mouth. Like he didn't want something that was kind of going to blow you away. He wanted something a little bit more elegant, a little bit more refined. Wasn't going to be super sweet, whereas Brown Estates is a little bit sweeter. But he did want to accentuate like Zinfandel having layers and really still showcasing that acidity that kind of floats through the profile. So I would say across all the varieties, you do see some degree of acidity. It's way more pronounced in our Cabernet Sauvignon. But I'm looking for that. I'm looking for a little bit of herbaceousness in the cab. I'm looking for that earthiness. Not necessarily looking for the heat that we will get if you start really pushing past 28 bricks. And then, yeah, a lot of our producers are utilizing anywhere from 40 to 60% new French oak or new American oak. So a lot less than what Gallo's doing. So yeah, those are kind of the big profile like expectations of Monte Rosso.
I'm actually fascinated by the executive tastings you do. Mm-hmm. How many a year do you do? Who's there, and what are their typical reactions and what are their off reactions?
So everybody up to our general manager is there. And I have it in March, so start of the year before contracts are re-signed or agreements are made. I have our winemaking team in there to speak to the winemaking side because a lot of those wines are not complete. And then I have my bosses in there. We do it once a year, like I said. What was the other part of your question?
Oh, just the reactions that you get from upper management.
Mostly positive. So even for the people who don't initially start with a trademark agreement, if they thought they were just going to, blend it off somewhere and then decided, actually, we have something here, they could submit their wine for trademark approval. So we'll do that there as well. And then if we give them the thumbs up, we'll invoice them for the difference. and then they'll now be in the rotation for the qualitative analysis up until bottling. But more times than not, we're asking how easy it is to work with people. How much, of a pain in the butt are some people? That's a big focus. Like,
there's probably a lot of people who fall off the list because of that. I can think of some names.
That is a big
Vineyard
point.
pests.
Like, our jobs are hard enough. I luckily don't have too many pains.
Again with the laugh.
We're looking at you, Morgan.
Right.
Oh no, Morgan's great. No. Morgan's great. Don't take that.
It was just an easy target.
A big focus is who's easiest to work with, and why do we really want to be working with them. Again, I have a spreadsheet that's in front of everybody in the room, so we're looking at the chemistry of the wines that we're tasting. We are looking at their retail values, because I can't legally tell people what to charge, but it can become a sticking point. I could suggest it to you, so I always have suggested retail in our trademark, and if you're way under that, then we would probably not resell to you, because now
why would they be way under that?
Trying to, again, not shock their demographic, and by way under, they're probably breaking even with the price per ton if you did every 100 to one.
Have a loss leader, have the cachet of having,
and you attract people to your brand,
and having the cachet of having a Monte Rosso out there, and so it doesn't, you don't price it way out of the zone with what your customers expect.
And that can get tough, especially with the smaller guys. That can get very hard if all of a sudden you have a wine like Monte Rosso, and what we're charging price per ton doesn't really allow you to charge under $60. So if you're 50, 55, we're probably eyeballing you like, okay, well, what is it? Now there are some people we put an asterisk next to, like, this person maybe isn't charging what we'd ideally like to see, but they're up and coming, they're scoring, they're everywhere, they're getting certifications, people are paying attention to them. So is there value for us to stay in partnership with them? Yeah. So there are some anomalies where it's like, okay, a little asterisk here. But
I would imagine, the rest of the other clients want you to be protecting those prices also, right?
So
they don't want somebody out there with a Monte Rosso that's $35 a bottle when everybody else is trying to sell it at $65.
Luckily, the discrepancies haven't been that crazy. That's another conversation piece. And I would say a lot of that tasting is just seeing what's going through my brain when I'm going through and tasting and talking to these people. How am I managing these relationships? Like, where am I pushing them to go? Where do I think they're going to go? And how are we going to see this in the next 1 to 2 years? Because I only set up contracts up to 3 years. I don't do evergreens or anything like that. So like half the time they're trying to question and see, where do I see this going? And why are we playing in the way that we're playing? So like even joining the Moon Mountain District Wine Growing Association, or is it Alliance? I messed up the word.
I don't know. Okay. I just call it the district.
Yeah, the district. So we joined that to be the host location in lieu of membership dues. So as we look internally to start utilizing the Moon Mountain District appellation, it's like, how does this work for us as we start going organic? How does this work for us? So I have the autonomy to sit around and go, okay, if we do this, we're going to get exposure here. We're going to get the buy-in from the neighbors. Oh, and by the way, I'm selling all this fruit that's not going to be organic. So if we play fair with, the neighbors, and we treat everybody as, we're raising the tide for everybody, that's going to get us buy-in on the back end to raise prices. Now we have these people that aren't going to get sticker shock from a triple-digit price point. Like, so I literally am like kind of just this mastermind of like, how do we do this? So joining Moon Mountain District and being the host location now in its first year consumer facing, most of those buyers are going to be from Monte Rosso. So that's more incentive for my buyers to showcase their wines. You get to pour 3 to 4 wines. One is definitely going to be your Monte Rosso. So now if I've got 250 people coming to support the AVA, you've seen Monte Rosso 20 different times. Yeah. So like, I'm sitting around like, okay, how can I make this work for us while still being beneficial for the county? Because again, we have so much diversity within Sonoma County. I don't think we've really understood how to harness it and make it something that's very attractive for people to come and really highlight different points in each of these AVAs to say, you need to get here.
It's a very analytical process, but how different from Napa, where it seems to be neighbor pricing. My neighbor's getting $450 a bottle. I can too. And it's just
that's not the case here.
No, you're doing a really great job on that. It's very tight.
I've been compared to Andy Beckstoffer like 5 or 6 times now. And I
would be like, wow, you don't get to call me Andy Beckstoffer until you put $1 billion in my bank account.
I'm the Sonoma County.
Okay, so until you put a $500 million into my bank account.
Yeah. But I guess his approach of, I can charge this.
The brand that you're protecting is the Vineyard brand,
right?
And that's of all the other ones don't matter if the Vineyard brand isn't protected,
right? Yeah, and that's honestly one bad apple kind of ruins it for everybody. So that's why I'm not afraid to have the tougher conversations with rejecting the trademark. It's a necessary evil, and again, if my contracting process is built on trust, I expect you to trust, or I want you to trust me. With farming Monte Rosso and doing right by you when you're not on the vineyard and you send me an email and say, I want to see leafing this way or doing something like that. I'm executing without you having to be, up my behind out there. But I'm also expecting you to get this wine to fruition because you're not going to have to do a whole lot to it, but keep it from spoiling. And if you lose control of your wine, then you and I no longer see eye to eye with handling Monte Rosso because I'm putting it in your hands by giving you that authorization.
Isn't it nice though to have those conversations knowing that there's someone else that is willing to step in too? Yeah. It's not like you're a new vineyard where you're having these conversations where you're just this.
There's a waiting list now, right?
Right.
Yeah. People are going to want
right. I mean, it gives you that's comfortable.
Right. And I will say, like, as I look towards, what my professional career is going to look like, farming Monte Rosso is absolutely a luxury, and being able to have this amount of power is because Monte Rosso was established well before I got there. I think if I was starting on a brand new vineyard, didn't have any notoriety or things like that, which I'll start working on. You're going to be you're going to be breaking even, or you're going to be taking a loss in some cases, or you're going to give some stuff away at a discount price for a very long time, working that grassroots effort of building up the name. It's not easy to do, and you certainly don't start out with the leverage I had jumping into this role. But I've had a lot of learnings, so I know that the vineyards that I do take over and start trying to build up that notoriety, I have a lot of things already covered.
I mean, there's also this piece of it that there's no way, if it was just a internal organization, say, there's no way that you can justify the farming costs of farming the way you are up there where everything is more expensive than it would be down somewhere flat and easy.
Right.
The fact is, in the modern moment, you can't make a bottle of wine out of a vineyard like that, whether it has the name on it or not,
right,
for less than $60 a bottle.
Yeah.
Right. And really, it's probably more than that.
Yeah.
And so if you're farming another vineyard, but has the same, the same difficulties, the same challenges, it's still going to have to be that ton price and that bottle price because that's what it takes to do that there.
I will say, even if it doesn't have the difficulties, if you're managing a vineyard by hand at this point, you're paying, you're going to be paying an elevated price.
And that's not changing.
That's not going to go away. At this point,
it's going one direction and it's not down.
Farming costs go up anywhere from 2 to 5% annually. And that all leads back to that final bottle price. So I think it's a lot of things that people don't think about, but it's definitely something that I have to add into the equation of, what's my year over year pricing? What, do I want to hold? The grape market was super tight last year, so you could push pretty aggressively on price. I don't think this year is going to be in that same fashion. So, am I going to soften up a little bit? Am I going to hold? I have all those opportunities.
You're going to hold.
I'm hopeful to hold.
You're going to hold or push.
I'm hopeful to hold. But, those are all decisions. And I think I'm just getting smarter about really building those brand partnerships and that continuity, because I don't want to keep negotiating every single year. That gets really
These wine, they know they could negotiate with the boxer before. Now the boxer is going to be a mom also. They're going to take whatever price you give them.
I'm very concerned about that. I'm super concerned about that because like I'm a very like upfront person. Like I will tell you exactly what you need to hear from me. And now that I'm becoming like mama bear, I'm like, oh, I'm really not going to give a damn.
The filters are gone. Yeah. Whatever filters were there, they're gone.
It's like I'm going to have a baby strapped to my chest and I'm going to be ready for a nap. What's it gonna be? Like,
tread lightly.
Yeah, like at the Moon Mountain District, my son will be 2 months old or so. So I'm literally gonna have a baby on my chest.
He's gonna be the star of the show. I mean, like there'll be 100-point wines and famous winemakers and so. I mean, everybody's gonna be talking about King. There's no 100%. That's my prediction right now. Should we hype that for a minute? June 3rd.
Yeah,
and it is. It's the details will be forthcoming soon. But it's consumer facing. There's going to be 200.
I can talk about some of them.
Okay,
so,
you probably know more than I do.
Yeah, so we're doing a masterclass with Antonio Galloni.
Oh, we can say that?
Cabernet
Okay, good.
Semillon.
Yeah, Galloni's going to be the star of the and King is going to be the stars
I'm
of the
going to be
show.
on the panel with a baby on my chest. So we're doing a masterclass followed by a tour with me on Monte Rosso. So not many people get to do that. That's going to be a fun one. And then we're doing a grand tasting with up to 25 producers of wineries that source from the AVA to present their wines. So we're working out the details. We'll have a shuttle service to get you to the ranch, but it's set up to be like a really awesome day. Oh, and father of my child will be the father of my child is a chef, so he is going to be cooking for the event. Cool. It's a whole family affair.
And not just a chef; he's the chef at
the Claremont.
The Claremont.
Casual.
Not just a chef. He's a chef.
And this event, tickets will be sold through the Moon Mountain District.
Yes, Moon Mountain District.
We're working on that detail.
Right.
Yeah, that detail.
I think I was assigned recently with figuring out how tickets are going to be sold.
Yeah.
So I think we'll have an event right going or something like that.
We'll keep you on task. So.
Yeah, but that's going to
There's
be
a team.
really fun.
There's a team in place.
That's going to be a really, really fun event. Like you're going to
mark your calendars. June
Where's
3rd.
everyone parking?
They're parking now. I think we're talking about like Hannah Boy Center or something. There's going to be a shuttle from somewhere at the bottom of the hill up the hill. Yeah, no. You don't mix consumer events and tastings and Moon Mountain District roads.
Yeah.
Bad combination.
No. A 1 lane for 2 miles.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I've seen the way people drive sober on those roads.
Right.
There may be some people at this table.
Exactly.
Whoops.
I may have seen some people drive a little bit
I
crazy
drive
on
my
those roads.
truck like
I know it's a paved road, but what's that cloud of dust coming towards me?
Yeah.
Well, now that they've paved it, you like fly down it.
Yeah.
That was like the worst thing they could have done.
Yeah. The potholes
should have put in speed bumps.
doubled his speed bumps.
They did.
Did you hint at maybe possibly farming another vineyard or going to another vineyard? Were you
My role is expanding. Yeah.
Expanding?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I was curious about varietals. Like, is there something that you haven't played around with that you're curious about?
I actually want to get really good at Pinot Noir. I think for the level that I can farm Zinfandel and Cab, granted those are two wildly different beasts, I think I could get really good at Pinot Noir.
Where would you want to
Russian River.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's just, I mean, I feel like I was born and raised in Sonoma. Like that's where my career started, was Russian River. My heart will forever be in Sonoma County. So like that's just where I want to lean in and get really good at everything here.
Yeah.
So Pinot Noir would be my next target because I think I could create a pretty fire Pinot Noir.
Cool. Very cool.
Nice. Heard it here first.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
And what is the timeline for you possibly maybe taking on some other projects?
Well, now that baby's on the way.
Yeah.
Timelines have shifted.
Yeah, things have shifted. Probably 2024.
Cool.
Yeah, I need to. Life is happening outside of the vineyard, so I've got Monte Rosso on autopilot. Gonna keep that sustainable. See what mom life does. and then jump back in 2024. So like I'm only out for I think like 14 weeks is the plan, and I'll be back and forth. I'll be coming back full time for harvest.
14 weeks living on the property.
Yeah, you live on the property, right?
Yeah,
It's not
so,
like
I'm not off.
It's like,
like
really?
maternity leave will also be like,
Hey,
no, you can't like go. You can't go down to the store and buy more diapers without driving through and seeing 17 things that you're gonna want
I
people
know.
to
Well,
do.
and I keep telling my team, I'm like, this is going to be a reprieve because Joseph's family is from DC. My family is here, but like they've all already booked flights. So like I'm going to have a million family members at the house. So I'm thinking when I get out to the vineyard, it's going to be a nice breath of air.
I need to go to the vineyard.
I need to walk
get
outside.
F out of this house.
Yeah. So that's
Somebody watch
I'm
the
thinking work will be a nice little break because we're just gonna
Absolutely.
have way too many family members there, and yeah, we're both like, oh, this is gonna be a lot. Like I think he's moving up, so it's gonna be aggressive. Then I've got Violet May, and you guys know how much of a hot mess that dog is. So
so awesome.
it's a
So
lot.
excited for you.
But yeah, it's gonna be fun.
When are you actually? What's the due date?
April 10th.
April
but
10th.
he's still measuring a week and a half ahead. So could be late March. But he's an Aries like his mom. So I just pray his temper isn't as bad as mine.
Bud break, bloom, baby.
April
It
Fools.
all starts with B.
Yeah. Then Barasian.
Right.
And we're back.
Barasian.
But no, it's an exciting time. And I got to say thank you guys. You guys are always so fun to speak with and
Thanks for
hang
being
out
on the show.
Let me talk about all things Monte Rosso.
Well,
I'll probably get a call from Tegan, but
hey, that means he's listening. You know, it's all good. We're all happy about it.
Yep.
Hi, Tegan. Thank you. Come on the show, Tegan. Bring some wine.
Or at least he's hearing it secondhand from somebody.
They were talking about you.
Brenae was.
I'm gonna get shit for the Morgan crack. Probably is what's gonna happen.
Right. Because we know that Chris is listening.
Yes.
Somebody's listening.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Well, yeah, June 3rd. Mark your
June 3rd,
calendars.
Yeah, come
Mark
out
your
to the
calendars.
ranch, buy those tickets. Like it's such
And
it's,
send gifts to Monte Rosso starting in sometime early April. Baby
It
gifts.
started.
It started,
September.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it started in September. I found out a week before harvest started, and I was off for 3 weeks of travel. And was like, "Yo, what is happening?" And then, yeah, our families found out, and stuff has been showing up to my house since
You have
September.
to build another barn for all the baby gifts.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually now that it's on social media and like people see me, stuff shows up. So like people are still sending me wine and I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to put this. Thank you, but like and I get it. I'm going to need a lot of wine, but
For all that family.
Yeah.
Either to deal with all that family or
Yeah.
for all that family.
gifts,
Either way.
I've gotten an obscene amount of body pillows, which has been really funny. So like people just keep sending body pillows.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, they must know. But yeah, don't feel shy. Just
Well, are you registered?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
No body pillows.
Please,
No-
no more
no more
body
body
pillows. Yeah.
Shout out the registration on the. No, I don't do that.
No.
Everybody, if you're going to RSVP for the baby shower, though.
But you can meet him if you come to the June 3rd event.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's incentive.
And then anyone that wants to come to Monte Rosso is, I mean, how do you even get up there? How,
you
is it
don't. You have to
don't.
know somebody.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pay for an event or you know somebody.
I mean, you can. I think where you were going is if you want to taste some of the wines, you go to Louis and Martini.
All those
Yeah.
people that we named as well.
Right.
Yeah, you go to Louis and Martini if you want to see offerings that aren't sold externally, or you go to any of the people that I just announced.
Or you can order some of those wines and then get on your computer and go to Google Maps and then just kind of like virtually do a flyover of the vineyard while you're drinking the wine.
Yeah, maybe don't do that.
You can interview with Brenae's drones that she has out there already.
We will take them down. Most of the wines, because they're such a limited quantity, you actually have to join membership. So that's another big thing for us is like, we want to support people's clubs. We want them to, be invested with the buyers. And Monte Rosso is hopefully an incentive to join a club and stay with that winery. So most you have to join the club.
Or you can go where I am going tonight, to the Fairmont, who has some Monte Rosso stuff on the list.
Yeah.
We're actually doing a Magnum dinner tonight, so we're going to go pour some wine for...
Okay.
Yeah.
Casual Magnum dinners.
Yeah.
Should we announce the next Magnum dinner?
Yeah, sure.
February 23rd. All Rossi Ranch wines.
All Rossi.
Nice.
10 seats available.
Everything out of Magnum. 10 seats, 4 courses, 5 wines, all out of Magnum.
Boom.
Damn.
Call us.
Damn.
Bart, you have anything to sell? Get in here, Bart. Give us a shout out.
I'll catch you guys.
Actually, you know what? I have a shout out. I want to give a shout out to Mark Trichskew. I never say his name right.
Yep.
But he posted just the other day. He took like a whole bunch of his kid and their friends to like a Bordeaux Grand Cru tasting event, and there's all this like
talk about going to the Burgundy one next,
and there's all this like hand wringing over why aren't millennials buying wine and young people buying wine and don't care about wine, and be the Mark T
right
of
Good
your
parents
of your
right.
family, and bring some, because those kids, if they could afford it, wouldn't care anyway if they didn't know, if they hadn't have a chance to go taste those wines,
right.
And if they probably couldn't afford it. So, share your $75 to $125 Monte Rosso wines with a 22-year-old. Learn them something. Yeah, so.
I think that's a whole nother conversation, but yeah.
Or younger. Or younger. If you're in my family. All right. That's what I got today. So, shout out to Mark.
There you go.
Trichq-ish.
Nice guy.
Trichq-ish. One day I'll learn how to say
any
your last
other
name.
shout outs, Bart?
I got nothing right now. Yep.
Brenae?
No.
Want to say hi to anybody? Hi, Mom.
I don't even think my mom listens to podcasts.
Right. We could say.
and she's in like full grandma mode,
right.
so
Oh, that's cool, though. She's happy about
she's
that.
losing her
man.
mind.
This is her first grandbaby?
This is first great grandbaby. This first grandbaby on both sides. First nephew. Like our families.
You're so in for it.
Our families haven't had babies in them for like 15 to 20 years. So
There's probably a road down the backside you could find.
it's an escape route that takes you to the plaza.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, you might need that.
Yeah, I know where it is.
I know exactly.
But
where
yeah,
that is.
grandma mode is it's a little psychotic.
Well, thanks everybody for listening. I hate to turn this off today. We've been having
was a good
such a
one.
good time. So it's a thank you very much for being on. Really
Congratulations.
appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we are the winemakers from a beautiful afternoon in Sonoma, California. We'll talk to you next week, everybody.